Hi, Christina. Welcome to Sips and Chat. How are you today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was gonna also say your full surname, but I'm not even gonna try.
I don't need to attempt
How do you pronounce it though?
So my name is Christina and my last name is Kozatenkova. But yeah, I feel like if I break it down for people, sometimes it's fine. Like it's not the hardest name to pronounce, but sometimes
Say it again.
Kozatenkova.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, lovely. And you were mentioning offline that you are the last person in your family. Explain that.
Yeah, so when we had like in my family a lot of people being like repressed and moved to like other countries, and then like my grandfather, when he came for his military duty actually, and he met my grandma in this village where she's from, they changed his last name by one letter. Oh, wow. And so like that iteration of my last name is like the last person, and I'm the only child and I'm a girl. Oh. So yeah, and we changed our last name. Like I know that like some cultures don't do that, but we do that. So yeah, once I go get married, hopefully one day, if it happens, then yeah, it's kind of like my name. Yeah, I killed the family name.
So what was it before?
With an A, so it was like even more weirder. So,
okay,
yeah.
say it.
Like Kozatenkova, like this, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't like that version anyway, so it's fine. Yeah, exactly.
I've also recently changed my surname actually, so we also do. A long story.
I know.
A story for a different day. Okay, so maybe you can start by where exactly you're from, where you grew up, family life.
Yeah, so I was born in the city in the southeast of Ukraine. Okay. It's called Kryvyi Rih. We like to say it's like a village because everybody knows everybody, but it's actually, I think we have like 1 million people or something like this. Probably less now, all things considered, but yeah, it's like a big town, and it's a very industrial place. So we had like the one of the biggest steel plants in the whole of Europe, and we're pretty much feeding the entire Ukraine, right? Really? Yeah, and it was a very good town to grow up in, I feel. I don't know, like everything was available, and there's a lot of like hobbies for kids that they can do, because in Ukraine it's not part of your like schooling system, so your parents have to like actively put you into these like I don't know, like clubs you want to call it or whatever. So my mother decided that I need to do everything possibly imaginable, because probably she couldn't do it when she was younger or something like this, I don't know. So yeah, I went to school, and then I also did ballet, and then I also did the ballroom Latin dancing when I was like a little bit older. Yeah, so I think like a lot of my personality issues come from the fact that I had a very strict ballet teacher. I love her very much, but you know,
she was
but she was and I was born into a family of basically just my mom and dad, and they lived along with my grandfather and my grandmother on my dad's side. And my parents growing up used to be like in Poland, basically trying to make money like half of the time. So they would they had a little toy store. It was called Sambalina, and they called it because I was born 8 months, like super tiny. And they also waited for me 10 years.
Oh wow. Yes.
So yeah, and they were always like at work, and so my grandma, like my grandpa passed away when I was really young, and then my grandmother pretty much like raised me.
Okay.
So yeah, so whenever I would see my parents, it would feel like super special, because you know I didn't get to see them a lot. And then on my dad's like family side, we didn't have many people, so it was just like literally my grandparents. And then my mom's like back in the day, like after the revolution, the whole family was like shipped out from Ukraine, repressed into Siberia. So all of my mom's relatives, like she came back obviously because my mom is just like does a lot of crazy stuff. But her family is like all the way there, and we like barely speak to them, but yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. So you were an only child?
Yes.
Were you spoiled rotten?
Not at all. You know, it's so funny because a lot of people who meet me, they don't think I give like single child energy. I don't know if you but yeah, no, it was, I think because they weren't really there like most of the time, like I still felt like the love and the everything. I would never like blame them for anything, but because I was just with my grandma, and my grandma was a lot of the times like out of the house, like she had a garden to like take care of, and then she had her friends, and then like I really liked like the personality that she had. I think was very close to me, that I was basically doing things like on my own. So in my family, I think what I really am grateful for to my parents and my grandparents, there was a lot of like responsibility given to you.
Okay.
I think it was also because they trusted me a lot to do things like my own way. So there was nobody like, standing over me like for doing anything pretty much. And I think that's why I kind of grew up into, I remember I went to college and people were asking me like, oh, how do you like wash your clothes? I'm like, how's that?
What do you mean?
Exactly. Like, I'm like, how do you not know? And then I will never forget the story. Like my friend, like she fell, like tripped and fell, and she broke this pant, and she really liked this pant, and she's like, no, I want to wear it tonight. I'm like, okay, give it to me. I'll like sew it. And she's like, oh my God, you know how to sew. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, and you're a girl. How do you not know? Exactly. So, and I don't know if it's like a Ukrainian thing or like my family thing, but I think we all know how to do it.
Yes.
I'm just like, I know how to do it. Yeah. So.
Okay. And your parents they stay in Ukraine?
Yeah, they're still in Ukraine.
Okay.
So when the whole thing was like kind of starting in 2014, they had to sell that little store that they had, the toy store, and then they moved to Kyiv.
Okay.
And they've been staying like there since now, like 10 years now. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And I guess you touch a bit about how you kind of had to be very independent and learn to do things really young. But what else? I can imagine, you want to be next to your mom, close to your mom, growing up. Did that have an impact at all? Did you even notice that, okay, my parents are not always here?
I think I was very close with my grandma, and she was kind of she would take me to all of these like little like dance practices, and she would come to school like every day and like drop me off, and then we would have these little like secrets in between us. So my mom would go like up until like basically I graduated, they would do these whole like runs to like Poland to like bring stuff and like sell it in Ukraine, and me and my grandma, they used to literally like those phones, like the home phones that like, nobody uses anymore. So I would like to invite people to my house. Okay. My mother was like, so obviously like she didn't want me to do that when she is not there. And I would be like, oh, we're gonna have a party, and I would like steal like alcohol and stuff from there, like things, and I would invite all these friends. And then my mom would, because she would think I'm staying with the grandma, right? Yes. And then she would call the grandma would pick up the home phone, call me on my mobile, put the phones together. Like she was really sneaky like that. I loved her. So I think like we had like a very good bond with my mom. I feel we understand each other like from like half a word, because like her personality and the way she like carries herself and the stuff like she does, I feel like is very similar to how I am. Like she's also super like independent, like she does things her own way, like she's kind of like the breadwinner in our family. She's the one who like works most of the time. So I don't know if she like saw it in me also when I was growing up like earlier, and then she just decided she'll be fine. So I don't think I missed her a lot, because I always knew that she was like there for me, no, like completely. I think it was fine.
And I asked that because I also had a similar kind of like growing up. I was raised by my sister. My mom was working far away, and people will always be like, oh, didn't you miss your mom? I'm like, no, like I did, but it wasn't like a huge gap in my life.
I feel like you also, when you were younger, when kids are put into that situation, you kind of start like the first thing that you think about is like, why is she doing that, right? And the earlier you can understand why it's happening, I feel like it was so good for me, because like I love the fact that I could go and like buy things that I saw like that other kids maybe wouldn't be able to, right? Or like especially when you're like 10, 11, you start comparing like houses and like all of these things and which area you live, and I knew why she was doing it. And I think at some point it like hit me, like when you are in somewhere in adolescence, and I'm like, okay, like my dad and her, like they both are doing this just because they want something for me, right? And when you start like feeling the benefits of this, I was like, I'm fine. I can take care of myself. They can go do whatever they need to do. So I think my family was always like that.
Love it. I want to go into school and things like that, but before, your love for Christian Louboutin, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. First, let's talk about your nails. And then, of course, you always have amazing, beautiful shoes.
Oh, thank you.
Tell me, where did that love come from?
So I remember when it was my graduation. in high school. I wanted this dress that I saw on, like, I think it was Pinterest at that time. That was like super popular. So I saw this dress, and then I gave it to the seamstress that used to make my ballroom dresses, because they're like super fitted and like, they know how to do that stuff. The dress that came out, I don't know if it was like my body that was a problem in high school, or like the way she made that dress, but it was like completely not what I envisioned. But then I saw it, because it was like a beige dress, and I kept seeing these like Louboutin shoes on not Instagram back in the day again, like on Pinterest. I was like, okay, this will save the day. Like, I really want these shoes. So I go to my mother and I'm like, the audacity. I go like, my mom, like the dress, like whatever, like I don't know how I feel about it. And then my mom was always like, you're just, like you should work on yourself, not the dress. And then I showed her the shoe, and she's like, okay, what is this shoe? And she's like, we can find something similar. I'm like, nothing is similar. These are Christian Louboutins, okay? I'm like, this is a concept, okay? Like, you cannot find anything similar like this. Of course, she didn't buy me this, and I don't even know if Ukraine, like, you would be able to get it like back in 2012, 2013. And since then I was like, I really want to buy this shoe, and it was that particular shoe, like the beige, like patent leather, like little platform in the front. It never got those shoes. Like, it's just like I guess like not meant to be. But that idea was like constantly in my head. And again, like in my town where I was growing up, I don't think we knew what like designer was. Nobody cared about like what you wear, what bag you have, like none of that. And then when I went to college, it was a very interesting like experience, because I was put into these, like, like the international kids that come with like money to the school, and you're looking at them and you're looking at yourself, and I'm like, what am I, like so much worse? Like, why can't I have this and that? And and then my mother on the phone would explain why I can't have it, and etc. But then the minute I could find money to buy, like that was like my first thing that I bought. And oh my god, they're called like stripper shoes now, like the ones like huge, like nobody wear. Actually, they're coming back in style now, and I kept telling like all of my friends, like I kept telling everyone, I'm like, you know what, like those shoes I have, I'm like, they're gonna come back, and they're back now. They're like the huge, with like the big platform at the front. They're like these huge like black patent leather. And I remember the first time I wore it, I was trying to impress this guy. He was absolutely not impressed. And it was like these short. It was when was it? I think it was like February, Valentine's Day. Okay. So I was trying to impress this man for Valentine's Day, and like we all go out in this minus temperatures, like right in the northeast, and we're standing there like waiting to get into the club, and I'm in these shoes, and I'm like, So, but since then, like I feel also how like about the shoes is it has to kind of like fit your arch. So if it fits your arch, this is your shoe. And it doesn't have to be an expensive brand or like any whatever, but it's that brand that will carry you like through life, like your weddings, your graduations, your whatever. You have to stand for 7-8 hours at work, like and this is my shoe. Like I found my shoe, and then I became obsessed. And the minute like any, of course, like I now have, I think like something around like 10 pairs, like but every time there is like every time there's any disposable anything income, it goes to Christian Louboutin. Like he's my everything. And you recently went to an event. Yes. I was so jealous. Tell us more about it. I was jealous of me. So I was going to my one of my best friend's weddings last month, and right before I was leaving, I get a message from this girl who works at the Christian Louboutin store, and she's like, "Oh, Christian Louboutin." Like, and I'm like, I'm reading it, and I'm like, "Do I have to read it again?" I'm like, "Is it like a joke or something?" Is this real? Is it a prank? And she's like, he's coming to Dubai. Like he hasn't been in Dubai since 2019. He's coming to Dubai, and he's gonna sign shoes. I'm like, sign shoes? I'm like, okay. And she's like, oh, if you pick like a shoe from like this new collection, they're like the denim, like very Beyonce kind of situation. Pick a shoe and then he'll sign it, and then he'll be here in the store and you can meet him. And I'm just like, and then she goes, are you interested? I'm like, wow. What do you mean? What kind of question? I'm like, what kind of question is this? I'm like, yes, absolutely, I'm very interested. And then she didn't tell me the date, and it was somewhere like, because I was just traveling, and in my head, because I already had this big plan about like where I was going, like I was out for 2 weeks of the country. before she told me the date, in my head I'm like already thinking, I'm like, how can I like change my ticket, like in case if I have to come back or something like this. But no, like it was after. It was amazing, honestly. Like this guy, like you didn't feel like you're in the presence of this like amazing designer who like I don't know, like you recognize those like shoes from everywhere, right? Like it's a big thing, and he is so like chilled out. It's like my uncle like walked into a room and he was like trying to explain something to me. I brought this little like book with me and I wanted him to sign it, and he's just like, he's like, but I'm not gonna sign it with your pen. I want to take it back, and I have markers and like how he does it, and I want to like paint it. And I'm just like standing there, so I'm standing there and I'm like, oh my god. Like, he's super sweet, super like you don't feel like he's this like big something and you're just a nobody, because I feel like sometimes people treat you like this at work and they're like nothing. So it was a beautiful experience.
There's a documentary I think he did where he was explaining why apparently these shoes are not meant to be comfortable or something like that. I don't know.
So I find them comfortable. It's like unpopular opinion. Again, it's all about like if it fits your arch. I don't know if I'm like gonna have to move it after. He basically keeps telling that it's like it's for the woman to look her best. Yes. So it's for your legs to look the longest. It's like the red sole. It's supposed to be attracts a man. I don't know, but yeah. So that was his like version. Not yet. But yeah.
Oh, and then your nails.
And then I have this, when I came to Dubai, so nails were always like, again, this comes from my mother, so we were raised in a way that, and this is very Ukrainian woman type of situation. The beauty standard is like, above here, and the average height in Ukraine is like 170 centimeters, so you can imagine where up here is, right? And like it's basically like you would not eat, but you would go like get your nails done and things like that. Like it's taken very seriously. Like now they have because of the war, there's a lot of the times like the electricity like goes off. There's these things you can buy on like Ukrainian Amazon that basically the nail technician wears like on her head, and it has a little light. So in case if the the electricity goes out, she can continue doing your nails. It's all taken extremely importantly. And again, like when I moved to America, it was like really hard for me to find a place. I found my lady, and then I moved here, and I was just like, again, like my nails were like spoiled for the first 1 year, and then I found this girl, her name is Katerina, and she's also from Ukraine, and she's actually from like the areas that was like really badly impacted, lost her family and everything, and then she is here now, and honestly she does like the most amazing stuff. I'm like, this is why this is art. It's beautiful, and you can come to her to be like, okay, I want like this kind of nonsense, like Halloween is coming up, it's like, this is what I want for Halloween. She's like, yes, okay, like we can do whatever you want. But yeah.
Okay, now let's take it all the way back. We are in school. How do you choose the profession you're in?
So I always wanted to be in the government, like in Ukraine. Like I wanted to do international affairs because this was kind of like the track that you do in Ukraine to become like to go into like politics and policy making and stuff like that. My parents had a very different idea about where I should study. So I feel like from the time I was in middle school, they've adamantly decided that I need to go to school in the US or in the UK.
Okay.
And the first option was in the UK, so they sent me to this like I think English camp or something, but I think they couldn't understand because they also don't speak English. The school that I was in, like the teacher was amazing. I could speak like completely perfect English, but they didn't know that. I feel, so they sent me to this like camp in Cambridge, and then the people just kept moving me up a grade and a grade and a grade because they were like what are you doing here? Exactly. So it was just kind of like a vacation for me. Then they decided to move me from like my school where I was, because in Ukraine also everything is public school, so everything is in Ukrainian. There's only one school that's a private school, and it's for kids who cannot speak Ukrainian, like if your parents are working, like the people who are again like attachés and so if the kids don't speak Ukrainian, then like obviously they need to like maybe they need to stay in their programs and stuff like that. So when I don't know if the situation is any different now, probably not, but when I was growing up that was the case. For some reason they decided I need to be in that school for a semester. I was taking a train for 6 hours every Saturday to like come back, and because I didn't want to leave the ballet practice, and again the teacher so she's like, okay, you have to make it to at least like one thing a week, so I would like go back and forth was this entire time until after one semester I was like, this is really not working. I'm like, and I don't need to be there.
Yes.
I was like, if it's meant to be that I have to go there, then I'll go. And in my head I was like, I didn't want to. So, you know, I was like, God, who cares about that? I'm like, and then basically, because in Ukraine it's you graduate and then you apply and then you hear back from your school, and I did all of that. The American universities were all like 1 year before. So again, my parents made me take the SAT at that time, and then I did it. And then my English teacher who was like preparing me, she was like, why are we preparing this? I'm like, I honestly don't know. I'm like if this makes my mother happy, let's just do it, you know. And like honestly, I was like, nobody's gonna take me. Like it's a Ukrainian public school. Like we don't really, they know generally that people don't speak English. Like it's fine. I'm like, nobody's gonna take me anyways. I'm like, and they don't have the money to pay for it. So like, let's just, you know, if this is what they want me to do, I'll do it. And then the time came to like apply for the school, and I picked like 2 universities that I'm just like, absolutely no way in hell like they're gonna take me. So there's one that's like 2 in New York. I did like NYU and Columbia because honestly I just didn't like want to get into anywhere. And then I did an exchange, another part of the story, like while they were preparing me to like send me off, I did an exchange and I went to, out of all places, Ohio for a high school like exchange program. I stayed there with a family. And we went for Christmas break to see their like extended family, and one of the girls there was a sophomore in the Eastern University where I ultimately ended up. And she kind of told me about, it's a cool place because you start working, they have this co-op program, you start working pretty like soon, and you know, like the school is super international, like, you know, you're gonna like it. So I had to do 3 schools because that was like the agreement with my parents. So I was like, okay, I'll do that school. And then unfortunately for me, well, I don't know, it turned out well now, but at that time I was heartbroken. I was like, no way, I don't want to do it. I got into that school. I got on the wait list in the other ones, and then Musician took me and they gave me a scholarship. And I was just like, okay, I guess this is happening. Like, you should have seen me in the airport. I was crying, dying. I didn't want to leave Ukraine at all. And I feel like the first year, like my freshman year that I was there, was really, really difficult because of the environment that's like super different, right? Like you're just, the people are just like, the values are super different, like stuff they wear, things they eat, how they carry themselves, like how they talk, like everything is just like boom on your head, you know. So it was hard, and then I think like I found my kind of group, and then it all went uphill from there. And now this school is like, I think they're like in the percentages as the Ivy rate, acceptance rate, because of this co-op thing, because you get out into kind of the work much earlier, and a lot of the times you end up in the places where you do your co-op, which is kind of like an internship, but it's paid in 6 months, and you have to do it twice before you graduate. So people who meet you at that internship, right, or co-op as they call it, they most of the time you end up in that job. And especially now with, you know, how hard it is to find anything, I feel like people really want to get in. It was nothing like this when I went up as but
I'm sure. But it sounds like your parents had a plan.
Yeah, they had a plan anywhere out of this country. Yes, because you know, they have been scarred like so many times by things. Like we had this like banking default where they lost a lot of money. Then in the 90s it was basically like the currency changed one day, and like whatever you had on your like deposit account, like my dad was a big saver. He was a sailor when he was an electrical engineer on a ship, like when he was younger, so he saved a lot of money, but the family was like super frugal, like they wouldn't spend anything. So it was on this, like they used to call them the books in the Soviet Union, right? Like and everything was on this deposit, and he had an amount to like buy a car. He wakes up one day and it's like to buy a pair of shoes, and not Louboutins, like shoes. You know. That's and crazy. People like in my building, we had like 5 floors, 3 out of 3 families, there were like people who suicided. There was nothing to eat. Like you can also see like people who are born in the 90s, like out of my friend group, it was mostly you only have one child because you can barely afford that child. So out of my entire, like everybody who I know, only know 2 families who are like 2 kids in the family. Everybody else is like a single kid, because you just can't. My mom was telling me a story. She was like, I was super excited because I could find you like a banana and like feed you, and I was also like 8 months, so they were like really scared I'm gonna die or something. Like I don't know. So it was a little hard for them. But Yeah.
Wow, but I love it. It sounds like they had a plan. They knew
Exactly.
they wanted the best for you, and they made sure it happens. That's amazing. Okay, then in school, university, what do you study?
So I went, again, when I was applying to American schools, a part of me, I was like, I knew I can't go into like politics or anything like this, like in America. Well, I think now, like, now it's like different, right? But when you're applying to school first, I was like, what's something that's like super, I don't know if convenient is a word, but like applicable to everywhere, everything, right? And they have this like major that you do in schools, which is called business administration. So it's like, you know, this is kind of like how in Ukraine we call this like the economist, like you just study like economics and stuff, and then you're basically the management or something like this. So business administration is basically like was translated into that, and I was like, honestly, I feel this is like the easiest thing when you find a job, and I was right back in the day. And this is what I did. I just applied for that, and then you could pick like your concentration between like accounting, finance, and like things like this. So I did finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about how career-wise, your first job, where was it, in the US, here, Ukraine? Tell us about that.
So in, again, in Ukraine, it's not a thing that you do a job before you graduate. Like you can work like at, you know, stores and like things like that, but people in general don't want to hire anybody before they graduate high school. For like anything, there's no such thing as internship. Again, like back in the day, now I'm not sure, but back in the day that was not a thing. And my first job was that co-op that they did. So my first one was at Brown Brothers Harriman, and I did fund accounting, which I feel like very solid foundation for like you have to know your numbers to do any kind of anything else. And then my second job was at this place called Wellington Management, which is still very near and dear to my heart. And I got a tax position, which was basically, the company itself is a financial like asset manager. But I was in the tax department, so we were basically doing taxation of financial products, and then we had like all of these big four consultants like giving us kind of returns. We would review them, and then we would also work on like the strategy and things like that. The team was very small. It was 12 people. This is my second co-op. So and they're still all there. Wow. So I had Ryan Brennan, Catherine Ozwecki, Michael Feder, and Ingting, and they all are still there.
Wow.
And I get these like LinkedIn notifications. Oh, congratulate Catherine on her like 17 years or whatever, 25 years at the company. Like not like that. I think it's like 12 or 13. But all of these people who I met at that company, they've been there forever. And I'm like, I don't know if this like the job is like so good or like what's so good. But I like absolutely loved my experience. And then after college, when I was like looking for a job, because in America they allow you to stay for OPT for 1 year. Kind of again like you end up in the place where you did your co-op. So I went into another team for a few months, and then a position opened in the same like tax team that I was there, and they took me, and it was like again like super wonderful. And I still, every time I go to Boston, I still check on them, and like we meet all the time. They're super like nice to me. They still act as my mentors and everything. But yeah, it was like very nice, and that's how I ended up in tax, because usually like you don't go from finance to tax. Exactly. It doesn't and then I really wanted to move to Dubai. Like this was the first place my parents took me, like when we were on a trip, like first time I flew on a plane. And there's a video of me like when I was super young. I think I was in 4th grade or something, this when they took me here, and my mom is taking a video of me with those like cameras, like the HD things, in the airport, and I'm crying in the airport, and I'm like, I'm not gonna, and we got some kind of doll for me from the Mall of the Emirates, because it was like the only mall that was there back in the day, and I'm standing with this doll, and the doll is dancing, because like, you know, the playing music kind of thing, so she's like dancing in my hand, and I go like, I don't want to leave. You guys can go back. I'm going to live in Dubai. Like, you know. And then my mom found this video when I moved here, and she's like, see, it all happened. I want to see it. I want to see that video. Yeah, I need to find it. But yeah, so I was always like, I feel like fascinated with the fact how clean everything is. Safe. Like super, especially when you are a girl and you're alone. I feel like it's super important. And I also felt like everybody was so beautiful. You know.
That's one place when I got here, I'm like, wow, why is everyone so beautiful?
Like super polished, right?
Yes.
Like even if again, like I don't believe in like natural beauty. I think like it all comes with, you know, you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like people were like super, like they know how to take care of themselves here. Yeah,
I do know, and I think I slightly had initially when I started staying here, I felt like, am I even pretty enough? You know, you start questioning yourself. And then I got over it. Obviously, I'm done with that. But people are so beautiful. Anyway, we digress.
I was like this in Ukraine.
Really?
Yeah, because like honestly, until I got to college, I was like, things are very dire for me here. I was like, nobody's looking at me. Like I was like the ugly duckling in my school. When I came back from Ohio, I was like X pounds, you know, heavier, and then like people wouldn't sit next to me because God forbid.
Really?
And yeah, so it was like really a shock when I came, and I was like, oh wow, people are super relaxed about like, you know,
no
they went from Ukraine to America. Nobody cares. Yeah, so it was interesting.
Then you moved to Dubai immediately after the co-op? No, after the year.
Yeah, so I did like a year exactly at the last job. And then I moved to here.
Okay.
And how I was moving is one of my friends who was like a college, like I met her in college. She was working in PwC in Egypt, and she sent me a link of like the graduates that they were taking into the program. Yeah. So I applied to like everything. There's like 4 tracks you can do in PwC. So there is tax, and then there is the accounting track, which they do like audit and stuff. And then there's 2 more. One is consulting, and one is like for mergers and acquisitions for deals. And I applied to everything because I was just like, just take me to Dubai, like take me as a janitor, like I will go, like please, just like just move me. And the lady who called me back, she was like, well, you obviously have like tax background, so we'll take you into tax.
Oh, lovely.
And then I came here and I did like a rotation. So we did transfer pricing, where like me and John basically like changed places like this. Like he went out of the company and I came in. So I did transfer pricing and then international tax and then VAT. And I ended up in VAT because you could choose like where you wanted to be, because the people who I met there, I have Pragya, who's like my VAT mom, and then I have Amit, and then I have Ishan, and I still like, I'm very close to them. And the tax world, especially in the Middle East, is super small. So those people were like the nicest people that I met, and they were like really like taking care of me. Like, you know how like you can feel when people care about like your progress, which is versus like, okay, like you do a good job, so we'll just like keep you in the company. And then I ended up in VAT, and I've done like Big 4 VAT ever since.
Okay, still happy. We were just told that we have 5 minutes. I don't understand how we have 5 minutes. Okay, so we need to wrap it up quickly. Okay, so now you're still in tax.
Yes.
What's next for you?
So I moved. So I've done like 3 Big 4s out of 4. People joke about me that I'm like Thanos from the Marvel movies, that I'm like collecting rings or something like this. I feel like in the Middle East, like people move a lot, and it's very like open to, you know, like kind of experience like what you want to do, which industry you want to do tax in. And I recently did a secondment in Amazon for a year, and I really loved it because you know, when you're a consultant, you're kind of like helping people from other companies. I saw it from the inside, and I was like, oh, like things that I do day to day like really impact and they matter. And that kind of made me like a better consultant when I came back like after my secondment. So I've been to PwC, then I went to KPMG, then I went to Deloitte, and Deloitte basically like shipped me off to Amazon for secondment, and then I came back. And it's basically, you know, we have a lot of things like, because again, the region is super like immature with the tax policies and stuff. We keep having like constant updates and stuff, so it's a very exciting environment to be in. But after like when I was finishing school, because at that point I could understand better like what I'm good at and like what I like doing, so I always wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And I want to do a JD, which is like the kind of, because they don't have like a bachelorette degree for law in the US, so I always wanted to do that. So when I get my head to that, that's the next step. I still want to do it, but then that's pretty much. But I really love, and like this again, unpopular opinion number 2, I really like tax. Like I love doing things, because you know, it's not only like filing people's returns and like looking at the numbers, it's also like advising how you structure things, looking at transactions. Like it's a lot, it's a whole world, you know, behind it. But no, it's really interesting for me at least. So
I love it for you. I'm so sad that we are running out of time.
It's okay.
But let's talk about what you love traveling. You travel a lot. What's the one place that you've been and you'd want to go back? You love it?
You know, I'm actually not a big, like, I travel a lot because people kind of like invite me to things.
Yeah.
But I never travel because like, I want to go and like see this place. Yeah. And I'm actually a very like homey kind of situation. Like I like my bed, I like my bathroom, like I want my things where they are. I love my cat. My cat has to be there. But yeah, he literally is like on my like phone case, like I carry him around everywhere. So I like to be like in my environment. So if I have to go somewhere, I like going to places where I've been before.
Yeah.
So like I like to go from here to Boston to see my friends because I'm super, you know, like accustomed to how everything is, and I like it. I love going back home. It's like impossible now. You don't do it. But I would love to go one day when it's hopefully is over soon. And yeah, so like those type of places. Or I also like visiting my friends. So like, for example, like people who I met in college or like at jobs, and like the colleagues who like move away. I like visiting their places because then I feel like comfortable. You know, they'll take me around, they'll show me like the best time. And then I think my favorite place that I visited was India. Like I'm super obsessed with like all, you know, like Indian Pakistani culture, all of that.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and I've only been to Bombay, but multiple times. And yeah, lovely place. The food is insanity. Like, it's all very good. Oh yeah, so that's my, like I would go back there again, even without anybody.
Next on your list must be South Africa.
Okay. Oh yeah, I've heard all about it now from so many people.
I think Rian is gonna get a place there. You should definitely visit. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanna share?
I think like just. It's very, like, I would say it's super important how your life goes from, like, the people that you meet. It's, like, it's so incredible how, like, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and how small the world actually is, like, and you don't think about it ever. But, yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It was a wonderful
You're just amazing. We should do round 2 in future, because I feel like there's a lot.
We need more outfits and more shoes to show.
Exactly.
More nails.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, baby.